I chose a color that, you see where my name is, that blue is kind of throughout the presentation. So I wanted to make sure you can see it. Is everybody acclimated? Everybody's fine? So it started here. It started, so imagine yourself, you're in a barrack in basic training, and it's kind of crazy, but you can do that. Anybody here served? Anybody here? Oh, man, I was hoping for that. That there would be somebody. But you're in the barrack, and it is, I don't know, 12 o'clock, 11, 12 o'clock at night. You're asleep. You've been asleep now for about 3 or 4 hours. And the door swings wide open, slams open, and everybody kind of jars up, and the drill sergeant yells, "On the floor!" You know, everybody to attention. And everybody's just like freaking out. There's 60 of you, you know. And you hop to the floor, and imagine you're standing at attention. The drill sergeant says, "All my career, I've had all kinds of soldiers. I've had infantrymen, I've had, you know, artillery, special ops, whatever. But this is the first time in my career I've had this. Boys, we got us a singer." And this was week 2 of my basic training. I had been told by everyone to be a ghost, sort of slide through basic, try to be invincible. You don't want to be too good, you don't want to be too bad, just kind of be a ghost. And I'm standing there, and I'm just like, oh, like I just knew. And he's like, "Where's roster 109? Right here, drill sergeant." And of course, for the next week and a half or so, I ate his lunch. He ate my lunch, or whatever you say. I mean, he had me doing push-ups. I was the first one in all the obstacle courses, crawling through the mud. I was the one getting yelled at after dinner. I was the one running the laps, you know. And eventually I realized it was all in good fun, because I was one of the only few guys in the group, the whole platoon of 60, that had a college education. Most of these kids were you know, coming out of high school, or 18 or so, or this is the last ditch effort kind of a thing. And so he knew that, and I think was just sort of fashioning me, and I became a platoon guy. So I was the guy marching these folks around. But yeah, today, so as I was thinking about this, you know, the basics of youth choir, I don't know, basic training popped in there, and I'm kind of a unique guy in that I've sort of experienced both music and choral singing, and as well as the Army. And the good thing about that is that I learned how to apply that to my youth choir. So here we are. And the funny thing is, this is our pastor right here. This is Al Caden at our church, the church I was at in Charlotte. So the funny thing is that this guy right here, Harold Eddins, is a retired command sergeant major. And so when I arrived in Charlotte, that church there, I mean, Harold is hoo-ah all the way. I mean, he is constantly loving and breathing Army culture. So it just became tradition. It became a thing that we do. Before we go out in the morning for mission work, before you walk into the airport at Charlotte and the terminal, and there's 70 kids in a big circle doing push-ups before they can embark the plane. He yells, and people are just like, "What's going on?" And like I say, I mean, all kinds of, you know, there's no question. I mean, head pastor on down, we're all doing the push-ups. And but it became a part of our culture. It became a part of what and who we are as a youth choir. So while you don't receive a diploma from basic training, I will tell you, I was forever changed by that experience. The more I thought about this session, the more I saw the similarities between the experience of basic and our youth choir. Working as a team, thinking as an ensemble, leaning on each other's strengths and undergirding each other's weaknesses. You are honing the skills while learning to work together. The satisfaction following the field training exercise at the end of basic relates to that of that final concert, or that choir tour experience, and that mountaintop high that you feel. I literally Googled basic training and read the Wikipedia the definition of what it is. You can literally replace soldier for singer. platoon for choir, or whatever the case may be. It's amazing, and as I read that, I thought, that's exactly what we do. I mean, we're learning technique, we're learning how to work together to achieve a goal. So, when we think of basic, we think of the face. What is the face of basic training? Any thoughts? What is the image of the person?
Drill sergeant.
It's got to be this guy, right? It's got to be the drill sergeant, right? And one thing that I noticed about the drills, they were unbelievably prepared. I mean, you cannot imagine. I've never seen the training for drills. I don't know what they go through, but they were always prepared. They were well trained. They were all in. There was no wishy-washy. Never questioned where they stood. They were great leaders. So preparation. Come on in. Preparation for us as directors is essential. From the summer before, literally, I mean, that's what we are as conductors. From the summer before to literally the breath before the entrance, we are doing what? We are preparing, right? We're preparing. So the first item of this is just, like I say, I'm going to throw stuff up here, and in a minute, at the end, we'll have conversation. I want you all to just know that this is by no means the end-all, be-all for us. This is just thoughts that came immediately to my mind. Dreaming. How well do you dream? And it's hard to do because, especially if you've been at a place a minute, Randy. But when you've been at a church or worked with a youth choir you've been working with for a long time, it's hard to sometimes dream, to break the mold, to break the routine, the programs. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? What do you want them to experience? At the church in Charlotte, we sang for Native Americans in South Dakota and Mount Rushmore, to Jamaica for the American ambassador. We're doing, singing for, and it's not just locations and destinations. We did a tour that was all VA hospitals. It was just, and I cannot tell you, that was probably one of the best choir tours we've ever been on. Touring up and down Virginia, singing for VA hospitals. What's the vision? What's the dream that you have? I love Covey's quote, and I'll probably mention it, begin with the end in mind. You've heard it before. I just love it. I was reminded of it, honestly, through my child's elementary school. They have Covey quotes all over the walls of the school. What do we want these middle schoolers, when they come in 6th grade, to have experienced from a musical and spiritual formation when they graduate? So it's not just thinking about what we're going to do this year. It's thinking about what is this child who's coming in at 6th grade, what do I want them to experience by the time they graduate? What are the tours and trips that we're going to accomplish? What's the scheme for those trips? They need to have a rural experience, mission experience. They need to have an urban mission experience. Maybe it's global. At South Main, we started a ministry in Peru about 12 some odd years ago. And our youth, every other year, it's part of their rhythm. They go to Peru. What's really cool about that is they're building relationships with that mission effort. The children they're ministering to the first time, the second or third trip they go, they're watching these kids grow. And, oh, it's you again. And they come back. And so it's not that drive-by mission trip, or that hit it and quit and we're done. We're building relationship, partnership. That's something I've entered into at South Main that I've really enjoyed. How do these dreams and visions fit in with the broader church of life, aligning and avoiding silos? How do your plans and efforts and hopes for the youth choir fit into the rhythm of the year of your church? You got to get everyone on board and avoid silos. I've served in churches that have been siloed, and I've served in churches that have been exceptionally collegial. And I'm telling you here and now, it is essential for success of youth choir to have buy-in and all-in from your staff. It is an upward battle if you can't get that. Sit down with your pastor. Sit down with your youth minister. What's that relationship like? Get on the same page. Share ideas and dreams and visions. And then, how does that fit into the rhythm of the year of your church? So you might have great ideas, but you've got stuff going on or goals and dreams of your church that may not fit in with that. So how does that all tie in together? Establishing a good relationship with your colleagues and getting everybody on the bus is essential. The third being calendaring. So now we're working 3,000 feet up, we're getting a little closer. or paratroopers are coming down. How does your rehearsal schedule look for the year? Set it and be consistent with it. Avoid too many calendar and church conflicts. That goes back to the aligning with the church. Oh, but we got that potluck, sorry, or we got business meeting on the conference on this. Well, there's this, the children have to do this. All of that stuff ties into that calendaring of your youth program. Because let's be honest, the holidays, the spring breaks, they're enough already. Those Monday holidays will kill you. And the next thing you know, it's spring and you've only had 10 rehearsals. It's something you've got to really, really be intentional about. And I would also include a regular performance schedule. Keep them singing. Our youth have to sing regularly. It can't be a quarter thing, and it can't be we always do this at Christmas thing, and we're looking at Christmas. Are they walking in September, and you're rehearsing Christmas music? Well, sometimes I feel like I know you have to, especially depending on the difficulty of the piece. But if that's the only time they're going to sing, or, that's not doing any good for them. Youth need to be engaged constantly and needing that routine of performance. If you have multiple services, involve them as often as possible. Local missions in around your church. Sunday school parties, have them sing for those. Deacon ordination. I throw this out because this is a tradition for us at South Main. I entered into this, but evidently our youth always sing for our deacon ordination. Can I just say how beautiful that is? We have a January, typically, deacon ordination. It's in our chapel. Come on in, just come on around and just turn a chair, or you can come. Don't be bashful.
Do you mind if I turn on the lights for a second?
Oh, for a quick pick?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Here, we'll all pause and look candid. No, that's good. You're good. We entered into our deacon ordination service, which is in our chapel at our church. It's a small, intimate space. Usually a couple of deacons, more or less, are being ordained. And our youth choir always sings for the service. And what's really beautiful about that is it's not just them providing a service, but then think about the kind of service they're experiencing. Youth don't normally come to that kind of service in the evening, unless mom and dad are being ordained. So here's the choir, not only partaking in this ritual, this beautiful experience of what we do in church in terms of ordaining deacons, but they're also going through the practice of laying on hands. I mean, having our youth actually come up to that individual and saying a blessing, saying a word, it became a beautiful tradition and ritual for us in the rhythm of what we do the course of a year at South Main. Repertoire selection. All right, I want to go back to Covey. Begin with the end in mind. You got to set them up to succeed, not just survive. All right, and know that there's a progression. There's a scaffolding that takes place with that. So yesterday you heard the "Take Me to the Water." The Dilworth. I want to mention that here in a second. It's a great piece. Maybe that's not one you throw at them on September 1. There's a lot of intricacies of that piece. Let's start small. Let's figure out what our middle schoolers are like. Or let's figure out what those freshmen are like. What's the sound of my sopranos? How are they reading? So scaffold those pieces. You want to look for pieces that are challenging enough though to raise their interest. But you got to provide a safe place for taking risks with music. Pick anthems with scripture. I love the Dane Guller, the In His Own Words. I'm sure you guys have seen those at some point by now. 10 years ago, whenever we first got that, I can just tell you how awesome that work was in our youth choir. Still relevant today. It's a great work. What's fun about it is our pastor's reading a scripture, a gospel lesson, and the youth are in their youth section, in the church, and he says, I am the good shepherd, or I am the way, the truth, the life. All the kids look at you, and I'm looking at them. They're all going, or they're swaying to the resurrection. It triggers, that scripture. I think, we have them for such a little amount of time. Why, unless it's a great piece of music, why not have scripture in it, right? They need as much of that as possible. Maybe songs that contain promise, lamentation, confession, and joy. These are elements that our youth are experiencing daily. They've got to express that in youth choir. So the Take Me to the Water, I loved. This summer we did it. We went to Charleston, South Carolina. And I love this piece because it has a great bass section. That's a key to a great piece of music. It's got to have a great bass. I am the resurrection, or, the one yesterday was, I'm going to lay down my burden, weight down. You just got the little bass line. You got to get you get the basses, you got the choir. The tenors have great gospel harmonies in that piece of music. The women have soulful melodic lines. It introduces 3 different spiritual texts. Wade in the water, what's the, down by the riverside, take me to the water. It's all in that one piece of music. It has a baptismal message. One of my little middle schoolers girls were singing in the choir. She loved it. She can't be still. We sang that piece. And it came time, she made her profession of faith, and she came to me and said, I want to be baptized on the day the choir is singing. And can I make a request? I said, well, sure. And she said, can you guys, because she wasn't even going to sing, because she was going to be robed and doing baptism. Can y'all sing Take Me to the Water? I said, I about broke down just right there. I said, absolutely, absolutely. They've got to have this experience. I chose that piece because we were going to Charleston, South Carolina for a tour in June. And we were meeting Ann Caldwell, who is a historian with the African American spiritual. And she has a group called the Magnolia Singers. And we toured the McLeod Plantation right there in Charleston. And I met with Ann. We met with Ann afterwards, hot and sweaty. It was awful. And we, temperature-wise, and we were sweating, and we were under this shelter. And she and her group taught my youth these songs, explaining about why the slaves sang. And they sang because they didn't have medication for depression. They didn't have medications that we take today. Music and singing was their medicinal act of soothing and comforting them. She taught us those songs. And then she said, do y'all have any songs you'd like to sing for us? And we didn't expect that. And can I tell you that Take Me to the Water works a cappella, like you wouldn't believe. Those girls knew right where that pitch was, and everybody had their prescribed part. And the performing group of the Magnolia Singers were just blown away. And what once became a monologue, all of a sudden, a dialogue. Can I tell you, we flew out a few days after that. I stayed actually with my family in Charleston for vacation, and the shooting took place. So this is the group that sang. This is the Magnolia Singers. Just teaching our kids these songs, And we spent probably an hour and a half in that shelter. They taught us how to move. They called it the Holy Ghost Shuffle. And, so our youth experienced that, and the lady in the yellow that you saw, Ann Caldwell, if you watch the news, if ever you saw a prayer meeting or any vigil that was taking place and there was singing going on, Ann was the one leading those songs. I talked to her the whole week following, and I told her, I said, for some reason I feel like I have to apologize. And she said, and of course Charleston handled that so beautifully, as she said, and we will, because they've been dealing with this for hundreds of years, And she said they see the bigger picture, And I explained it to our youth when we went to Charleston. You see the basket weavers on the streets, And I tell our youth, I said, these ladies doing this, they're not just, they're not just getting some extra money on the side. These women are 6th generation weavers. They didn't transplant to Charleston. They've been in Charleston for generations, since their great-great-grandparents were slaves here. And they've learned this trade. It was just eye-opening for our youth. And then we came back, they went back to Houston. I was still in Charleston. All those events happened. And can I just tell you the Facebook energy that was happening about what do we do and the response, how can we care for them, in our absence? Because we created partnership, we created relationship with them. Stemmed through, I think we should do Take Me to the Water this year. You see what I'm saying? Repertoire and that selection led to these events and those experiences. So before I get to clear communication, I want to mention something else, and that is leading by example. Every command my drill sergeant said, every single command, the push-ups, the obstacle course, he was doing it right there with us. Now, I didn't know that. My impression was all the movies, Full Metal Jackets, and all that, they're sitting there yelling at you, and they're saying, come on, and you're doing it, and they're just screaming at you. That's not basic, guys. That drill is on the floor with you. Now, he's not sweating. I don't know how that works. I don't know if it's Scotch guard or what. They never sweat. But I'm dying. He's there. He is putting in the time. You know he does. He's putting in the time, and in so doing, garnered respect from us and encouraged us to want to succeed all the more. Shouldn't we? Know your notes and rhythms. Score study. Model well for your youth. And I know it's hard because there's so many other ensembles in our ministries, but I'll tell you guys, if there's anyone that commands and needs this the most, it's the young ones. But we should set aside that time. I know hospital visits and meetings and all that stuff gets in the way sometimes, ministry. But if you can chisel sacred time, sacred space for score study, you will reap the benefits. And of course, the youth will see that and feel that. The clear communication, crystal. I don't know if y'all remember that movie. It was one of my favorites. That's a great quote. There's a couple profanity words. I was going to show you the clip. I thought maybe not. But that is a great moment when he just talks about communication. You understand me, Colonel Crystal? We used to talk about it, and I go back to Randy. Randy and I first met, I think it was at a round table with Youth Q in Kansas City or somewhere. And where we first started hearing Randy Edwards talk about communication and ideas were coming from all these different directors and the multiple modes or types of communication, written, verbal, all that kind of stuff. That's all well and good, but you know what? Times have changed, guys. Times have changed. Now the different, I think the different media for communication is all technology. You need to be texting. You need to be communicating messages on Facebook, on email, Twitter accounts. Those are the different mediums now, right? And I will say, in addition to the written, you still got those first-time moms with that first-time sixth grader. They're going to want that piece of paper that has that calendar. They've been coddled for all those years in children's ministry. Now they got you, and so they need that as well. And can I just say this right here? Handwritten notes, I think, have always been powerful, meaningful, and touching. But today, and especially for our youth, all the more. On choir tours, sometimes I write encouraging notes and publicly, call kids out, and this is what you encourage us through this, or here's a scripture verse. And I didn't realize, I just trying to be sweet and a good minister. And a couple of years later, I found out one of my tenors, who was very quiet, always kept that little card in the back of his pocket. I was blown away by that. I didn't know because we were rooming with each other and with the group, and he's like, yeah, and he kind of had the confidence to say, ever since you did that, it just dawned on me, those handwritten notes, they go a long way. So now we move to the platoon, the choir. Lay out your expectations. In the interview, you've now, it's been, you've got, you did the mountaintop tour in June, now it's in first weekend of September. It ain't the same kid you left in June. There's a lot of stuff they've experienced and done in that summer. Maybe they've even grown 2 inches. This interview is essential. I'm sure you all are doing this. I hope. If you aren't, you need to. Every child, every youth needs to be interviewed. How you doing? What's going on? What sports going on? What instruments are you playing? How's your family? Mom and dad are getting divorced. I'm so sorry. Or yeah, we lost a car. Our car broke down, so getting to rehearsal is going to be tough. You learn so much when you have that interview. And of course, in that interview, you're also going to have voicing. You're going to voice them. And I'll speak more to that in the Changed Singer session later today. Culture. Now's a good time to be conveying culture. One of the ways that we do this is through skits. I like to at the beginning, the how do we behave in rehearsal kind of stuff. It's the stuff nobody has a lot of fun times talking about. You need to be quiet, self-focused. But skits are a great way to do that. Have the youth act out the elements that you expect them to, the standards to hold in rehearsals and whatnot. What are the rituals? I wore my bow tie today, right? I've already mentioned the push-ups. That's become a ritual for us. But I wore my bow tie. I first moved to Houston, and this is what we do. This is how we roll in Carolinas. That's just how we roll. And so I moved to Texas, and of course, at least in South Maine, there weren't a lot of bow ties. And I asked Steve, I said, when can I start to wear a bow tie and worship? He said, why don't you give it a couple weeks? So I started, and now it's become the thing. Well, I was talking to the youth choir. It's like, all right, we got to decide on our attire for the year. You know, first choir, my first time youth choir, what are we going to wear? Women, had this nice blue blouse with the embroidered church, you know, it was a nice thing, collared, you know, untucked little thing. And then I said, well, guys, what are we going to do? We need to find a tie. I said, oh, yeah. And the senior guys in the back said, bow tie. And I thought, oh, yeah, you're funny. I thought they were totally joking, because up to that point, everybody kept joking with me about this thing. They're like, no, we got to get bow ties. I was like, yeah, we do. It became a cool thing. In the first worship service, only two guys could tie the bow tie. So I had to build in a little time before worship. I mean, the boys, because some of these dads didn't have time. And now, all but maybe two of the men in my youth choir can tie a bow tie. And it's just the coolest thing. It's a ritual. It's a part of the culture. What's your culture of your youth choir? How can you develop a culture within it? And of course, the standards. Cell phones. Can I just tell you, I've done a little bit of research with that, and I'll talk about that as well in a later session. People think they can multitask. The studies have shown it's impossible. There is emotive transmitters that happen in your brain when you see someone, your girlfriend, tag you in a picture. Quite different from the beginnings of the Crimean War. It came across the page. And sadly, we're getting intellectual information, maybe in a session like this or a choir rehearsal, and they're getting an update or a buzz or something that's something holistically different, that it triggers emotional response. They both can't coexist. It's impossible for it to be effective, I guess I should say. Get the phones away. Now, the way to do that, there's boxes. Some folks have placed boxes on a piano, the big box. Everybody come in, it's what we do. I've had a friend of mine y'all seen the women that have those shoe holders? What's the shoe plastic?
Oh, yeah.
What do they call it? Closet? He's got that in the back of his door, of his choir room. So he shuts the door, and it's nice because they're clear. You can see your own phone. You know what I'm saying? Instead of an empty box or whatever. So the kids come in, they got the little holders for their phones when they come in. I just think it really helps the decorum and the effectiveness of a rehearsal. The musical standards, that's obviously the behaviorals there, promptness, all that stuff, talking in rehearsal. Set those out early and be consistent with them. And you know, the same thing goes for musical standards, posture, intonation, tone, rhythms. Guys, don't sell short just because they're youth. You cannot just, okay, well, it's a volunteer youth choir, I'm glad they're here. No. You can't do that. Oh, I didn't click my bow tie. Wait, here it comes. Oh, I missed it. There it is. It's coming. You can't be. You can't sell them short. We do that too often. They want to rise to the occasion. You know, they want to be more than they are, and we have to hold that to them. So all those standards being said, I love Fraka Hasseman's quote: "No conductor has the right to take away the joy of making music from anyone." It's going automatically now, so I don't know what that meant. That was funny because it just did that on its own. But I love that quote. You may go back to it. Maybe I can go back to it. Yeah, there we go. I love that. No conductor has the right to take away the joy of making music from anyone. So all of this, the standards that needs to be quiet, sit tall, you can't lose sight of that. You gotta love them. It's gotta be fun. It's gotta be engaging. They gotta know you care. And I always love Randy Edwards' comments when he talks about it's more than just the high five in the hall. Hey, buddy, hey, yeah. That's not you doing ministry. That's not you connecting to them. So, okay, here comes the bow tie again. That's what happened. I think I clicked it twice. Let's talk about the rehearsals. You heard me mention scaffolding earlier. I love this picture I found. Kind of looks like a church being built. But you got to design your rehearsals. You can't expect the private to be a sharpshooter the first week. You can't expect him to run the 2 mile in 12 minutes in the first week. You got to break down the anthems. Focus on notes and rhythms, harmonic structures, the text. Have that sweet little girl that doesn't say 2 words in your rehearsal. Before we get started, could you read the text for us? Just hear the words, understand the meaning, get all of that. And that is something you build throughout the course of your semester or the course of your rehearsal. Can you look to teach concepts and principles, not just moments? Hear that again. Look to teach concepts and principles, not just moments. So this is a standard for us. This is what we expect. No 2 adjacent notes get the same stress. Kids, that's a whole note. Never sustain the same volume. What are the rules for you as you're rehearsing? Because all of a sudden, hey, rule number 1, or no. And so instead of that measure of that song, oh, he wants me to do that there. They're understanding concepts and principles, not just moments. Because if we don't do that, you're going to be repeating yourself ad nauseum. And they're going to come back next week, and they're not going to retain anything that you remembered the week before, right? So you've got to, and I'm going to mention in a little bit about ways in which we can do that effectively. Variety and novelty. Unexpected and unusual routines need to be there to provide intrigue, and these give focused awareness. Never do anything the same way twice in a rehearsal. Sing staccato instead of legato to isolate pitches. I'm going to give you my instructions for the next piece, sung, but maybe next time I'll whisper. Or maybe sing ooh on page 2, whatever the case may be. Write it, but do it like in the midst of the rehearsal. You're plugging along. What's he doing? How do you convey and communicate your instructions to the choir? Be creative. Be different. Don't do the same thing, same way twice. For vowel unification, I've got a big triangle on my board. The vowel, the deemer or whatever, the vowel triangle. And not only is it a great way for me to say, I need more. It's also a great way for them to also learn the IPA. I put IPA on there. My kids learn IPA. And that may seem crazy. You may not be an IPAer. It's really simple. The little I equals an E. The capital I is an I. But what I have them do is I work, and they know tongue and lip vowels. And I need to, and sometimes things meet in the middle. Hey, can you give me a little bit more? It's a fun way for our youth to learn about vowel unification as an ensemble. But it's also a fun way for them to engage in a creative way of learning how to sing in unified form. I love Peter Boonshaft's ideas. Listen to these; these are great. Now he's talking about a choir that he sees weekly during the week, a school choir. But maybe this will trigger something. He has 3-thing Thursday. When you stop, only say 3 words. Only say 3 things. Sopranos, I need you to sing softer, with more staccato, and I don't know. Substitute, I don't know. Pick whatever you want to pick. But 3-thing Thursday, or for me, which really helps in rehearsals, 3 words or less. Tenors, louder, and something else. What are the ways that you can command and communicate what you need in 3 words or less? 3-thing Thursday. Or he has mute Monday, nonverbal rehearsal. Right, bored, maybe a lot more, right? But the kids are like, what's he doing? We're having mute Monday. The other one he had was foreign Friday. Give all your instructions in a foreign accent. So, just pick one, or maybe you have multiple accents in the course of a rehearsal. Sing with the lights off. Hey, we're experiencing that now. Sing in circles, mixed formations all the time. Be predictably unpredictable. Be predictably unpredictable, with no routines, no ruts. Obviously, sectionals. Do them often. Work with the cambiata voice, the changed voice, the boys, and have someone else help, or the accompanist or whomever take the other group. Sometimes the sectional could be soprano and tenor, alto and bass. That piece they did yesterday, the tomb stands open wide. That piece has a lot of coupling of the soprano and tenor and the alto and bass. It's great for a sectional in a different light. You know, it's not just the boys and the girls or the tenors alone, but be creative with your sections. Now we're going to move to the soldier, the singer. And for me, I think what's most important and paramount for the actual singer is their vocal health. You want to achieve that bel canto style through breath management, phonation, resonation. I like to insist on silent ah breaths. You know what I mean by that? So when they breathe in to start a phrase instead of, right? Which is what they do. Which, you know, as you know, the vocal folds, you're aspirating spit when you're doing that, right? I mean, the chances of somebody coughing and getting choked on something is very high. You're phonating in reverse of the way the folds are supposed to, airflow is supposed to go this way. So I work with, say, an ah, and I can get a full tank of air without having to hear a silent ah breath. But what that also helps us have is good vocal health, especially in the onset of the tone. My youth know about, I need a balanced onset. So instead of an aspirated onset, or I love you, you know, if there's some balanced onset, which of course a lot of pop culture, we hear that. You know, I don't want an aspirated onset. Much in the same way, guys, I don't want a glottalized onset. That pop where the folds are put together, and that popping is what we call a glottalized or glottal onset. And you tell them, how many of your fun pop singers today have all had surgeries for nodes and nodules? You know, you can go down the list, you know, all of them, there's a whole bazillion of them. Well, it's because that's what they're doing. They're using the folds to initiate pitch and tone. I want us to have a balanced onset, not breathy, not glottal. Approximate the folds. Think about where that pitch is and that vowel that you're going to initiate, or that tone, and just it's a healthy way to initiate tone. And they love this stuff. You think it's over their top, over their heads. They love this stuff because you are pushing them. You're not seeing them as youth. I tell them that often. I tell them, I say, the world wants to tell you that you're less than that your behavior is expected to be less than that. But I think different. I know different. And they're like, yeah, he's right. You know, there's this sense of like, yeah, he's right. You know, so we're going to stand straight. We're going to sit up. We're going to do whatever he's asking us to do. They want to rise to that occasion. I love movement. So that's the don't sell them short. I love movement with Helen Kemp and Rodney Eichenberger. These are the two that for me were paramount in sort of introducing this kinesthetic singing that provides deeper learning. They need to show the shape of the line, you know. They need to see that, you know, in a course of a phrase or you know, a line of music. The concepts I also gleaned from Charlene Archibek's and Deborah Glaze's study, their book on brain-friendly strategies for singer-friendly rehearsals. It's a great book if you've not reached out for that. If you're at ACDA, they gave a session talk there as well this past year at Salt Lake. So they found that students remember, get this, 14% of what is said to them, 50% of what is done. And are you ready for this? 92% of what they teach others. Think about yesterday at that conference with the concert with the Youth Cube, with the honors chorus. The boy that came up and conducted Obaseje. Unbelievable moment for him. Yeah, he is teaching. Randy does a good job with that, and you should too. What are some kids in your choir that could be conductors? Lead a sectional rehearsal. Or even as simple as, hey, Johnny, could you step up and just sing that line for us, because you know he's got it, and you're not going to ask him when it doesn't. Be safe in that. But ask him to come, oh, okay, and that's you are you are commanding not only for that person who is singing that information, but also those who are receiving it. It's a unique experience for them. That's going to be retained.
Could you tell us that
Yeah.
book again?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is Brain-Friendly Strategies for Singer-Friendly Rehearsals. You know, Charlene Archibek and Deborah Glaze, they did a little combined study. Keep the singers thinking by asking random questions, not just the volunteers. Who can da-da-da-da-da? No, you just say, Bob, can you just random questions, simple questions that you know they can answer. Everyone has an assignment in rehearsal, whether it's humming, singing, moving. No one is just sitting. Can't do that. You can't just have them sit there. Everybody's got to be engaged, and usually at the same time. Do laps before 8:30 worship. I know it sounds crazy. The first thing, if I can't do the laps, this is what I do a lot too. So my vocal coach at Furman, when I was there, used to have me do what he called the Raggedy Andy position. So in an effort to get the sound up in the mask, especially at 8:30 in the morning, everyone's still parallel, we're still in our beds. So, how do we get the tone up here? He would just have me honestly bend over and sing between my legs. Now, it is the most hilarious and quite humbling experience. But the kids, and they're like, what? You want us to do what? Yeah, come on, bend over. Right, okay, sing. Amazing grace. You have to stand up, and it's like, whoa! The sound is right there. That was great. Yeah? But if you can't, that's if you can't run. I love the laps, guys. You got to run laps. So it's, you know what I mean? It's 7:45, 8 o'clock, whatever time you call them to come for the early service, if they ever have to sing an early service. Or if they're just kind of groggy, you're on a choir tour, you got to go somewhere, you got to sing in a nursing home in 20 minutes, and they're just kind of like, all right, everybody, here we go, follow me, or do as I do, whatever, have this little copycat thing, and then start running, and just do a lap around the church. I mean, our pastor had a cow when he walked in one Sunday morning, and the youth choir is doing a lap around. But they get up and they come back to the choir loft. All right, back in line, okay. And there's the energy. All right, here we go. First piece, boom, and there it is, and they're on. They just need oxygen to the brain, right? They just need something to wake them up. Ask them to write on cards in their folders, comments that they're having in the midst of rehearsals. Charge them to do that. A piece of music that really is moving to them, or a thought, or a concept, or an idea that they have with the song that they're listening to or that they're singing. Write that, and then respond to and have them stick it back in or give it to you, and then respond to that comment. Share with them stories about the piece. Seeing Joe Martin last night reminded me of The Awakening. Hopefully you all have heard that piece of music. If you have, but have not heard the story behind that music, it is amazing. Do you all know about that whole experience? Most of you? It's pretty common lore now, I think. But my Carey boys, I had a changed voice choir, high school guys in Charlotte. They didn't know about that. We ran through the piece, and the one little boy said, "Boy, that was epic." I was like, "Yeah, it is an epic piece." And they said, and I shared with them the story. Well, the composer was a child. He was in middle school, just like you. And he walked up and showed his school, and there's the yellow tape. And his choral director had been shot. What? And to talk about that silence, and then that Soli Deo Gloria that comes out, the rebirth, the resurrection of sound and beauty, the awakening that takes place. All of a sudden that piece took on a whole new level of meaning for them. Share stories about why you chose that piece. Let the choir be involved in what emotions or thoughts we want to convey through our singing. Wow, that was great. Ask, you cut the cord off and say, what are your thoughts about that? In the midst of rehearsal, as you're crunching notes and rhythms. Establish personal connections with singers through the musical journey. Cues and gestures to a section or a singer you've been communicating to for dependability. We all know it. You've all had it. You're conducting, and there's that sweet Sarah in the soprano section. And we need her on that one part, right? And so as you're conducting and you're cueing and you're looking to Sarah, there it is. Maybe a wink, there's that point, whatever the case may be. But every time you rehearse that piece, there's Sarah again. There she is again. And what that communicates to her, I matter, I have a purpose, he needs me, this is a good experience, And you should be doing that throughout. Cue that in your music. Look for Bobby, whatever. But find ways to connect them into the rehearsal and into the piece into that musical journey. And lastly, we have medals and achievements. This is my silver here. That was a pretty bad shot. It's the only I could find of but yeah, look at this guy. It's fully decorated. Public praise in the moment. Don't wait till later. Charles, that was wonderful. I could hear you hit all those rhythms or all those notes. Public praise in the moment. Choose your solos carefully and timed. In other words, like I said at the beginning of the year, don't throw some hard solo to a student that's going to crash and burn. Set them up to succeed. But when they do, wow, that was wonderful. Post video on your Facebook page. Y'all know what I mean by that, right? Let's be honest as musicians. It's my wall, right? It's my wall. And you got all these colleagues across the country, other ministers of music with larger church or youth choirs than yours and bigger programs. And you're going to post this piece of music. If it's going to be posted, you want it to be excellent. So everybody knows what and who and what you're about. Guys, throw that stuff away. If you got a sweet youth choir that had a wonderful experience on Sunday morning, post that video on your wall. What better way to communicate to them how proud you are of them and their achievements? You know what I'm saying? Y'all tracking me on that, right? Let's all be honest about our Facebook page, right? Just let that go, and those kids will be like, the comments will just start pouring in. Oh, that was what I did. Rituals. Yeah, there's rituals of success. I'm going to go to Randy. I think it was your idea, Randy. I can't remember. The light sticks.
Joyce placed it.
God, it's Joyce. That's right. This has become a ritual for me. I stole that from that round table, and ever since it's been awesome. So at the end of my choir tours, either we're at a beach somewhere, the last devotion. It's in the dark of the night, and you've had a great week of all these wonderful experiences. Pass out the light sticks, big skinny ones. Have them crack and share a thought, an idea of how they've been impacted by this week, and then connected, and they all connect. You got this circle of light. Everyone's sharing what they've experienced, and then at the end, actually, I'm going to tell you something. At the end, we throw them in the middle of the circle, just a big mesh of light sticks, and I go in and form it in the shape of a cross. And for Joyce, that became a symbol and emblem for their choir. This past June, we did it again, and I had a junior boy who lost a good friend in a skateboard accident just a week before. So he had been struggling all week, and we've been talking. And for some reason, he asked me, he said, Carey, do you mind if I put mine in a circle with these three colors? There was some reason for the colors, and I can't remember. I said, sure, Josh, you can do that. Throw down the cross, and then he tossed his circle in there. He wasn't thinking, but all of a sudden, he throws the circle in the cross, and it's right there at the head of the cross. It was the Celtic cross. It's like this circle, the crown of thorns, and we unpacked that later. Just a spontaneous moment that happened. I was like, wow, rituals are important. The push-ups we talked about jokingly at the beginning. I love a special fancy dinner at the end of choir tour. Budget for it. A nice restaurant. I'm not talking about Hard Rock Cafe. Like a nice place where you can sit down with them. The girls can put on their dresses. The boys can wear nice shirts and slacks. And then pour into them. And I use concordances and different references, and online you can do that now, but I find scripture references like I would work by. If I got to know each one of you well and your personalities, I would try to find the strengths that you carry, and I would try to correlate a scripture verse with you. And I'll say, okay, could you stand? All right, come on up, put that arm around that boy and just say, I just want to say how much fun it has been. I know you're just a freshman, this is your first, whatever. But you pour into it, then you got the senior, and tears, right? But you pour, that's the last dinner, the last supper. It's a great way, and it's kind of become a ritual for me on choir tour, just sharing and pouring into them. What better ritual than baptism, right? Or medal of achievement. And celebrate that. What I love about South Main is when Steve baptizes, he asks the family could stand, that child or person's family, they stand. And he says, and if you've been involved in teaching this student through Sunday school or through Bible study, whatever the case may be, could you please stand? few number of folks, more folks in the congregation stand. If you're a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, and you are making a covenant commitment to support and undergird this person, you know, would you put, and the whole, of course, we have these theater seats, these old 19, whatever, so when everyone stands, it's like, ooh, and there's this entire congregation standing at this candidate, just looking at the choirs, you know, staring up at him.